They'll sing of the Grand Master who dreamed of saving the world. No one sings of the boys he handed the torches to. So I will. My name was Cedric, and I was 15 the year they let me carry the rose. You have to understand what that meant to a boy like me. I came from nothing, a tanner's son from the outskirts, all chapped hands and the stink of the curing pits, the kind of boy a city looks straight through. And then the Order of the Flaming Rose opened its gate to me, and a knight put his hand on my shoulder and told me I was chosen, that the eternal fire had a use for me, that I would stand between the good people of Vizima and the dark. Nobody had ever told me I mattered before. I'd have walked into a furnace for the man who said it. The first months were holy work and easy to love. I carried water to the wounded. I read the good book to a knight who'd lost his eyes. I learned the prayers and the polish, how to oil a sword and how to kneel. And at the center of all of it, like a son I was never let too close to, was him, Grand Master Jacques de Aldersberg. I saw him 4 times in my life, never close. He spoke of the great white frost, the ice at the end of the world, the cold that would swallow every living thing, that only the Order could shepherd mankind through. When he spoke, grown knights wept. I wept. It felt like being handed a reason to exist. We are the candle, he said, and the night is coming for the whole world, and a candle does not ask whether the dark deserves it. I believed every word. That was the point of me. I was made to believe. Then the city caught fire, and the war came down the lanes, and I learned what holy work actually was. The squirrels, the squirrels, the elves and dwarves fighting in the dark. They were the enemy. I knew that the way I knew the fire was warm. They ambushed our patrols. They killed knights I'd carried water to. And so when my sergeant, a hard, tired man named Aldersberg, we called her people that, when he handed us torches and pointed down a row of shuttered houses in the non-human quarter, I didn't ask why. Squirrels hide in these, the sergeant said. Flush them. Burn them out. I want to tell you I refused. I didn't. Not then. I'd been told the houses were nests. I'd been told the people inside fed the enemy, sheltered the enemy, were the enemy by blood. The Grand Master had given me a reason, and the reason came down the chain of hands all the way to mine. And I put my torch to the first thatch, because a boy who's finally been told he matters will set the world alight before he lets that be taken back. There were no squirrels in that house. There was a grandmother who couldn't run, and 2 children who'd been told to hide, and a loaf of black bread still on the table because they'd thought, even then, even with the city burning, that there'd be a morning to eat it in. And there I stood, sworn to the holiest cause in the city, on the holiest night, holding a fire I'd been told was a blessing, in front of a door that had nobody behind it but the people I'd been promised I was protecting. Carry the fire forward, and I was the monster the Grand Master needed me to be. Put it down, and I was a traitor to the only people who'd ever wanted me. My gran had a saying, lesser evil's still evil, but it's the one you live through. I'd always thought it meant choose the smaller cruelty and survive. Standing in that doorway, I understood I'd had it backwards my whole short life. The Order had taught me the lesser evil was obedience, that it was always smaller to do as you were told. And that's the lie that builds every pyre there ever was. So I put it out. 1 torch in a city of fire. It changed nothing. The lane burned anyway from a dozen torches that weren't mine. But I got the grandmother and the 2 children out the back, through the smoke, down to the swamp gate where the refugees were running, and I pointed them at the dark and told them the dark was safer than the rose. And it was. That was the truest thing I knew by then. They say a witcher walked Vizima that night, a white-haired stranger with a cat's eyes, doing the work nobody else could. I never saw his face, but I heard, later, what he found at the end of his road, that the man behind the salamandra, the man who'd been poisoning the city and stealing and murdering, to build himself an army of mutants was the Grand Master himself, Jacques de Aldersberg, the son I'd been kept too far from to see clearly. The candle, it turned out, was the one that set the world alight. The man who promised to shepherd us through the cold was the one feeding us, house by house, into the fire, and calling it salvation. He hadn't lied about the dark coming for the world. He'd just left out that he was the dark, and we were his hands. I took off the surcoat at a crossroads when the sun came up, and I left it hanging on the gibbet there, the rose gone grey, and I walked out of Vizima a tanner's son again, with chapped hands and nothing chosen for me. It was the loneliest I'd ever felt. Nobody had a use for me anymore. I have come to think that's the safest a person can be, when nobody wholly has a use for you. I kept a thing from that house, the loaf of black bread off the table, the one they'd left out for a morning they almost didn't get. It's hard as a stone now. I never ate it. Some nights I look at it, and I think the most dangerous words in the world aren't kill or burn. They're, you are chosen. Because the moment you believe that, somebody else gets to decide what you're chosen for. The great men get the songs. The rest of us get the morning after. This was theirs.